Hello, Facebook friends and family. Welcome to the Go Big with Leanne show. And we're excited for you to join us live or on the replay. And tonight I have a very, very special guest, Jennifer Porter. And I have a fun story to tell you before I turned over to her of how we met, how crazy good the universe can be. So I think it's been exactly 2 years ago. She posted something on Facebook. I was in a group with her, didn't know her at all, and she wrote something that was about this class she had taken and how it had done such amazing things for her life. And I'm like, oh man. And it had a link. And I'm like, I was getting ready to go to San Diego. San Diego? No, not San Diego. Yeah. Cal, is that where we're at?
Um, the Irvine.
Yeah. Anyway, somewhere in California. And I was like, I don't have time to be messing with this, but I'm like, just something about what she wrote in the post really intrigued me. So I clicked on the link and it was all about this course and the deadline was coming up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to do all this that it's asking me to do, but I did it anyways. And then the next day, I left, went to the conference, and there's like 600 people in this room. And I sit down and I turn to introduce myself to the person sitting beside me. And it's Jennifer Porter out of 600 people. And so at that moment, I absolutely knew that I was supposed to take the Master Key Experience course, which we'll talk about a little bit here. But so Jennifer and I have stayed connected over these last 2 years, and I have been just totally fascinated about how she can make things happen. So she's a wife, a mom of 4 kids, a businesswoman, entrepreneur, and a lover of the earth, as I'll just put it like that, instead of saying she's into garbage, but we'll talk about, we may or may not talk about that, but she's just a really special, unique person. And so I'm delighted to have her on the show tonight, and she's going to share with you, how she's been able to make some amazing things happen in her life. And she's a very busy person. Has a lot of responsibility. So it's just awesome to see how she's grown over the last couple of years. So Jennifer, I'll turn over to you and you can do an intro of yourself. And if you want to add anything to that story, you can.
That's great, Leanne. I so appreciate that we met also, and what uncanny circumstances. I just couldn't believe when we figured it out that we were each other when we in that room. But yeah, I am a mom to 3 kids. Although
3.
I do, but I do have a new puppy, so now I feel like I am a mom to 4 kids. And recently, like actually right at the time that I met Leanne, a lot of changes were happening in our lives. I've known my husband since we were in high school. We got married in 2002 and then had our kids in really quick in 3 years from 2010 to 2013. But 2 years ago, when Leanne and I met, a lot was happening also, and big changes that brought us to where we are now. So in terms of geography, we were in Queens, New York, and now we moved upstate, coming up on 2.5, 3 years ago. And it's just been amazing because, as Leanne said, I just have so much to be grateful for. And I'm so thankful that, especially with the state of the world and the pandemic and the real serious community challenges that we all have, that at least I feel, not at least, but I'm just so grateful that that I'm physically and geographically in the place where we always wanted to be. And when you have a home base that feels right, it's like everything else kind of can fold from there. So I feel like a lot of strength and contentment from finally having landed. We're in the Catskills, in western Catskills on the Delaware River between Pennsylvania and New York. So originally grew up in Scranton, PA, and then lived on the West Coast for a number of years. And then, like I said, right before getting here, we were in Queens. So anyway, I'm super grateful.
Yeah, so I love that you were able to move out into the country and that the timing happened really good for you, because your life would have been really different if you were still in your old homestead. Yeah.
Yeah. And what happened for me, interestingly, I feel like I'm not a very, necessarily hip to all the fashion trends or any kind of thing like that, but I do feel like I was ahead of the curve in a few key points in my life, including that my work, my main employment right before we moved went 100% virtual. So I worked remotely 100% from an office in Virginia. doing consulting, like Leanne said, around resources and garbage and recycling and composting. And so when that happened, I realized, hey, we don't have to be in New York necessarily. I need to be able to get to an airport, but we can kind of go wherever. So that enabled now, I think what a lot of people are realizing with work is that if jobs are now remote, like, hey, maybe we don't need to be in the city where we've been, or right, we can kind of visualize even some people moving to different countries, or different parts of the country. That now, of course, travel is restricted, but I think it just opens up a lot of possibilities. And I still do acknowledge that this time has not been easy for a lot of families, and people are dealing with sickness and other challenges. But I feel like, by and large, for us, I'm really grateful because we have been healthy and we do have a lot of space.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, if you're confined to a little apartment with 3 kids and they're not going to school and you're homeschooling and you're trying to work from home, and that would be, I mean, I know a lot of families are dealing with that. So I agree. I totally respect that. For a lot of people, these times have been very challenging, and for others, it's been a great opportunity. So somewhere in between is where all of us are going to fall. But I know, how long ago was it? So both of us have taken a course called the Master Key Experience, and then Jennifer and I are both what's called certified guides in that. And so I'm taking a break this year. I'm not holding a group, but Jennifer still is. But how many years ago was it that you took your first class?
Yeah, so I took my first class 3 years ago. I was a student. I was a Master Key student 1 year, and I've been a guide for 2 years. I'm coming into my 4th season. And yeah, it's amazing that my little post, which I don't do a lot, I happened to post that day in our network marketing group, Leanne, and then you saw that and it inspired you. I mean, I felt so strongly about that. Was after my first year, so I had been a student for the first year, and I thought, I just want to tell everybody about this. But you know how it is. Sometimes your excitement, and I definitely find this a lot because I could get too excited, and then that turns people off. So, but I felt like for our group, I felt like at least somebody is going to find this insightful. So I'm so glad that it was you. And it can really just be such universal skills that it could really help anybody at any point in their life. So I'm really glad that we are connected forever on that.
Yeah. Do you feel like that was a key turning point in your life of how to really make some new creative things happen for yourself, was by going through that course?
Yeah. So what happened was, I have always had a sense that, what you think about really does impact what happens to you. And I was the friend for my friends from high school. They would be saying something negative about themselves, like, oh, I don't like the way I look, or my hair, or I blah blah. And I would say, don't say anything bad. Just don't say anything bad. Like, I would always, if we interviewed them right now, they would say that I was always like policing people and how they spoke about themselves, because I had just this sense that it was important what you thought and said about yourself. So, any case, I had a number of experiences in my life where I studied psychology in my undergrad school. I ended up in grad school for urban planning. I had kind of had a cross country trip leading up to with my then boyfriend turned to husband a few years later, cross country trip where it was very open ended and we didn't know where we are going to end up. We wound up in Portland, Oregon. We're there for 8 years, went to grad school there. I worked for the city in sustainable development. He finished his BFA. It was like many things transpired that now seem like, oh, of course we were supposed to go to Portland. Oh, but it really was not what we were thinking. We thought maybe the Southwest, maybe California. So I had really had a number of these experiences of feeling like, wow, things eventually work out, even if it's difficult as you're moving through unknown territory. But what happened was, after I had my kids, somehow I got on a list for what was the Master Key, and there was an email that popped in that, now almost 4 years ago, popped in my email box, and it was somebody talking about how they had just taken their dog for a walk on the beach and they were over in Hawaii. And anyway, I just started reading this and I thought, this sounds amazing. What is this thing? And I put myself on the email list, and that became the start of my Master Key experience. I really didn't know anybody that had done it, but once I got into the lists and some of the initial kind of like that, watching videos to see what it was about, I thought, oh my gosh, this is what I absolutely believe. I absolutely believe in the power of your interpretation of what's happening to you and how you're thinking about yourself. And I was so excited to kind of find a group that wasn't really affiliated with anything except the concepts, except some like sort of some foundational text, but really the Master Key Experience book and other things. But it wasn't like a church affiliation or a school affiliation. It was just sort of like just people. And Master Key, as Leanne knows too, is people all over the world. We got Australians, people in South Africa, a lot of Canadian people. And I thought, this is just what an opportunity for me. Here I am. Yes, in diverse Queens, New York, but still, I'm a mom of 3 kids who are under 5. I'm really busy. I'm trying to make changes in my life, and I just like the energy of this. I just want to do this, whatever it is. So that's how I got started in Master Key, and I feel like it really aligned with things that I already believed in, but I didn't really realize there were other people kind of organized. And that's a great story of the internet, right? Like was a great use of the internet. Sometimes we find it challenging, but that was perfect for me.
Yeah, and I love that because that's how I felt about it when I read your post and then I started watching the videos that they have you watch. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not attached to a network marketing business. This is not a church, like you said. So it's just kind of independent, but right up the alley for me. Cause I'm kind of that person too, Jennifer. If I'm like, come on, you can do this. You can do this. I'm the cheerleader and the inspiration person. And I truly believe that, the stories of our mind will become the stories of our life. So we got to be careful about what we're thinking, because we're going to create it. If we're thinking negative and, oh, poor me, victim and all that, that's what you're going to create. And it's amazing. It's, the Master Key Experience is a big commitment because it's 26 weeks long. Mm-hmm. And, you're writing blogs and you're doing assignments and you're doing cards and reading Og Mandino, the greatest salesman in the world. But I can guarantee you that it's, if you follow the course and the guidelines, A, you're going to meet some amazing people. Mm-hmm. B, you're going to learn some amazing things about yourself, some things that you don't really like, and some things you're like, oh wow, I have some really untapped potential. And it's it's very hands-on. So you have a guide, that has a group of like 10 people that's there for you for the whole class, and then Mark and Davine. So that power of our thoughts is truly, truly, most of us just have no idea what we're capable of doing. But when you put some intentions down on the paper and you really start getting focused, it's like the universe moves these big boulders out of your way just by you like setting the intention that this is what you want for yourself. Mm-hmm. As long as you're not causing harm to anybody, it's like, it has to be kind of for the good of all. And sometimes that's a hard one to grasp, that because when we want like a new house or a new car or a new job or whatever, we're like, well, how's that helping anybody else? Well, a new job, if you're happier in that, is going to help you be a good leader in that job. So I believe that most things are for the good. Even though sometimes, especially as women, I think sometimes we have a harder time wanting things for ourselves because our kids and our husband and all the other responsibilities. So I believe that a lot of women kind of take that back seat of really going after their dreams and making things happen. Mm-hmm. And so that's the one thing I love about Jennifer. She's, I didn't know her before 2 years ago, but in the 2 years I've known her, it's, she brings her whole family with her, but she is not sacrificing what she wants to accomplish in life, because I think she believes that that's a good example for her children as well.
Oh, that is absolutely my story. And my kids, they don't really know what is Master Key is not really what they know, but they know that I work at this every day. Like I think relationship with yourself is like a relationship with your husband or spouse or friend, you got to put the effort in. You got to work at it. It's not just like you snap your fingers and everything's good. You got to be, eating right, sleeping, exercising, focusing your mind on your goals. I mean, it's unfortunately, because of things sometimes out of our control, it's very difficult to stay focused on health. And I think for me, the program just gives me a framework really to just stick with. It's like the 15 minutes of meditation a day are called like the sit in Master Key. I mean, who doesn't there's basically no a mental health program that doesn't talk about meditation. I mean, there's sort of universal principles, but the kind of practicality of it for me is like I really was attracted to that. And my kids, I think a lot of parents in my generation want their kids to think anything's possible, and maybe my parents thought that for me too. But now, they are armed with a whole different sense of it. I think, and just what it means to manifest.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I agree with that meditation. I mean, across the board, scientifically and everything, meditation is great for all of us. And I think, being part of a group that are practicing these things together, you're more likely to follow through on the daily assignments because you're part of a kind of a movement. And for me anyways, that's how I felt. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to let like the collective consciousness down of me not carrying my weight. And I still have the do it now stuck in my head, so there's certain things that, that we did over and over again. But, it's like when I look at the dishes in the sink, I'm like, just do them now. You look at the mail on the table, do it now. So I kind of have this principle of, I don't want to touch things or think about them, just do it now if it makes sense, because the longer I let those dishes, and that's just a random example, but the longer I let the dishes sit in the sink, I'm going to be thinking about them, and it's energy that's being wasted that could be making other things happen in my life. So, and I was already kind of pretty much a do it now person, but it really fine-tuned that part of my life. But it also, going through the Master Key experience, it really helped me determine what I really wanted in life and not what I thought I wanted in life. Did you have kind of that experience too, Jennifer, that you maybe had some things that you thought you wanted, but they twist and turns and you ended up somewhere else?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, one of the parts about the Master Key that I hadn't done before was it's a pivotal part is writing your definite major purpose, right? So like, what is your purpose? And if no one has ever, and I consider myself a writer. I write a lot for work, but I'll never forget the first week, my DMP was maybe like 2 sentences long, and it was very like dreamy. It was like, I want to see, health in my kids and be happy. I mean, it's very not specific. So I think the point of being specific in the DMP is like the most critical part in my twists and turns and trying to make that story my real true self. You go through so many iterations, and now here I am 4 years later, even still revising. I feel like life, luckily for us, we're all here and it's a work in progress, and we get to keep refining, and it's never an end point, thankfully, for us right now. So let's keep going.
Yeah. And I think in the world of, especially when people that are trying to do things outside the box or a little bit on the entrepreneurial side, it's not a straight line, and the only way we really learn what we really want to do is by starting with a project, and you go through that project, and then you realize through that you're like, oh no, this is really not what I want. I want to make a left turn over here, and I want to tweak. And so for people that are, I don't want to say this as judgmental, but people that are just, want to go to a job every day and that's what they want to do, that's fantastic. I think it's harder for them to understand that sometimes it looks like failure on the way to success. And even for myself, I have a tendency, I can judge some of those things that I'm like, oh, this feels like failure, looks like failure, but it's really not. It's just the evolution of my dream. And sometimes we're like butterflies, we transform into, different colors along the way. So what are your thoughts on that, Jennifer, of like,
yeah,
that whole like, oops, I fell down.
Yeah. I feel like that's definitely part of it. And I'm actually right now trying to sort of encourage that in myself, like make that happen, because I have, uh, to the point of saying like, I have a number of ideas that I want to make make happen. Like I have an example for a product that I want to produce based on a plant that I found on the property, and I'm thinking I don't know if that idea is going to work, but I could come up with like an idea a day basically. So I want to start making them happen, because if they're going to fail, then I want to just move through them. Like
Right.
I basically want to speed up that process right now. And my daughter just had this. She's just ended fourth grade, so at the virtual experience at the end of last year, they had a project called the what they do at Google, the Genius Hour. So you spend like a certain amount of time each day just coming up with your dream project as a way to generate ideas. And she had an adaptation of that for her class, and I just loved it. I was like, yeah, I think we need to give ourselves space to explore the ideas, and kind of how I do that. Not that I'm updating my core purpose every time I have a new idea, but I kind of keep track of what my ideas are and try to advance them as quickly as possible through seeing if it's gonna happen. So it's just that the way that it actually transforms into your life may not be the way that you actually thought at the start, but the detachment, I think, from how it happens is the key part. Like I have a big part of my DMP is giving back and service to the community through a grant program that I'm not I have a certain way that I think it's going to happen, but I don't know that it actually is going to happen that exact way. And some of the early parts of that are already taking shape now, and I'm thinking, oh, I wonder, it's like being curious, like is this what that is that, or is this something else? But it's like the passionate interest in that goal, but also a real detachment from how it happens, I think, is the key. And that some of these like refining pieces, this is definitely, I never thought about manifesting things as much as I do now, because now I'm excited by seeing how it happens. And you can very clearly see the opposite in your life and people that you love's life, where you could be thinking about the opposite of what you want because of your fear, right? Like I don't want to leave my job because I think that I'm going to lose my house. I don't want to leave and you could just keep yourself stuck in that for years, and be scared to go through your comfort zone and head out into the unknown. So I just love how this plays out in my life, and I'm excited, Leanne, because the Master Key class is going to start again here coming up next month, and I have two friends that I've been talking to for years about this since I started, and I think they may actually take the class, so I'm very excited about
Yeah,
that.
that's awesome. And we'll give you the information once Jennifer has the information, because you can't sign up yet.
Yeah.
And the concept of the Master Key experience is a pay it forward experience. So that's the other thing that really attracted to me. So when I went through, the group before me had already paid me to go through the course. And then my group, and each year you get to vote. So each class gets to vote if they want to pay it forward for the course next year. And our group decided to pay it forward again. So it's just such a unique concept. So check it out if you want, and we'll get you the information. You can post in the comments if you're watching live or the replay, and we'll get you the information. But I love that you shared that, to be detached to kind of how it's going to come about, because, since I was probably in third grade, I just always thought that, like, I want to connect. I love connecting people. I love connecting people with people, places, things, ideas. I had no idea how that was going to come about. And I've, but I think about, I've done a million different things in my life, it feels like, but at the core of everything is connection, physical health, mental health, and spiritual health. So like my core has not changed, but how it's kind of manifesting, in the world. I would have never, like, technology is amazing. I would have never thought, well, anybody can have a Facebook Live show, but being hired as a speaker and just the things that I've been able to do, I didn't have the self-confidence to do that stuff. I mean, I had zero self-confidence in high school, built some self-confidence in the military, but probably my really self-confidence really has built up over the last 10 years. And so I think Jennifer would agree with this, that how you make things happen is by taking that first step, by doing something that scares the heck out of you, or it doesn't even have to scare you that much, but just something that is outside your comfort zone, because that is because if we keep doing the same things we're doing day in, day out, we're only going to make the same things happen in our life. The only way to make newer, bigger, or different things happen in your life is by taking different action and taking different steps and stepping towards something new. And I know that can be really scary, but what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah. Just a little,
Right?
yeah. It's not really that bad. I think you just have to go through the fear, not necessarily be
Yeah.
just held back, And again, we're talking
Right.
about things that are good for you and good for other people. We're not talking about things that are taking away
Yeah.
from somebody else. So there's really no downside. It's really no downside.
Right. Yeah. And and you learn something, even if it doesn't go very smooth. You learn something about yourself, or you learn something about the project. You learn how you can do things differently. And again, that's why it's good to have mentors and guides and people surrounding you with love and support when you are going to venture out into that, something new and something big for yourself. That's why I think, doing something like the Master Key experience, maybe that's the big thing that someone's going to do to make some new things happen in their life. Maybe they decide, because they heard you and I talk about tonight, that they're going to commit to that 26-week course so they can have a little more self-awareness and understand the power of this thing that sits up here.
Exactly. Let's
So,
hope for that. Let's hope we get some more people, because I just found it like every year when the class opens, I'm like, I hope people take advantage, because it only opens in September.
yeah, it's only happens once a year, so you don't have a lot of opportunity. I know Mark and Davine do a few other classes throughout the year for network marketers, but this is the only time you can get into the Master Key experience. So what other advice would you, some simple steps that if someone's like, yeah, I have a whole list of things that I want to make happen in my life, what's some practical guidance that you can just give them today, Jennifer?
Well, I think the giving yourself the quiet time, if you're going to do, say, if you could do a couple day experience of just quiet unplugging and kind of just being with yourself and the ideas, that's ideal. Or if if that doesn't seem possible in the schedule, just giving yourself those 15 minutes, if you can do it morning and night, or just 15 minutes where you just tune out, everything gets shut off, and you just listen to your breathing. And it's amazing what comes out of that. I mean, I think, like we said earlier, any program or guidance or gurus that you could come up with, they're going to say that that's really important, so you can kind of sit with it. And then I think the mantras really help through the day. You said, Leanne, do it now. There's, whatever the little reminders that you can keep yourself on track. Like I'm going to get myself out of a negative thought pattern by inserting this new idea in there. That's really key. And then, and trying this, it sounds amazing. Like, this, could you really get the things you want in your life by meditating, inserting a mantra, and, not having negative thoughts? But really, that's what it comes down to. You have to be relentlessly positive about the things that you're thinking about and become your future you. I mean, that's really what. And when I say, I mean, I have a really close friend that I've been talking about this to for years, and I'm saying, no, that is the work. That is the
Yeah.
work. That's what you got to do. And and she, not that she doesn't believe me, but I'm like, honestly, it's not easy. It's not, if you really think about it. I said, you don't have to go back to grad school. You don't have to, invest in it. Of course you can. It's good to have helpers, and you need other people to help you along through this, like you said, mentors and groups. But really, that's the work, the mental labor of getting what you desire and what you feel like is your gift with the world, is really sitting quietly with yourself and interrupting negative thought patterns that are currently holding you back, and inserting in the thoughts that you want. And it sounds, I definitely can hear people like, that can't be, but that is really true. And if you look at successful people, through history, that's how it happens. That is absolutely happens. And you need to, link up with other people that support you with that, and not, you know, be kind of ruthless with people. If there's people who are holding you back and don't believe in what, maybe you'll be friends again, but you don't need to be sitting on my bench right now. Like, I'm actually trying to do something here and you're not helping. So I think you got to, being selective and figuring out who's going to be on your team to get you through. So that's some of the very first how tos on anything, and that's like getting out of any situation and into something you want. I think that's what has to happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. That mental labor, and I don't negative thoughts are going to come. They're
Mhm.
going to come all day long, every day. And they may not even be your thoughts. Your neighbor may be having a really bad day, and those thoughts kind of float. And that may sound a little too woo woo for people, but
Yeah.
thoughts are energy. So um, the sooner you can quick catch yourself in that, and just you can tell how are you feeling. So thoughts can kind of come in, and you kind of start noticing your moods going downhill. And then I love, they had us made the gratitude cards. And so, I have my, what am I grateful for? Gratitude is a simple way to pull yourself out of that negative thought. And this is not, it's not being Pollyanny. We know that the world still has things going on, but we can redirect our thoughts. And that mental labor is the key to anything that you want in your life. And plus, it just gives you quality of life. I mean, even if you don't have any dreams or goals or aspirations or anything, but you just don't really like how you feel, just do some that self-awareness and do the mental work. And I went on vacation this week, and on the way there, um, driving and husband and wife and directions, can always cause a little issues and things. And then you throw in Google Maps, and but I'm so grateful that, from all the spiritual work and the Master Key experience, that, I felt myself getting really wound up about nothing. And most of the time we get wound up about things that really don't matter. And in the past, I would have let that gone 8-10 hours. It would have ruined at least a day of our vacation. But I was able to go, do I like how I feel? This mental labor, this is not cool that this is happening.
Yeah.
So I was just doing self-talk inside the whole time. And within probably about 15-20 minutes, I'd gotten myself back down to that state where I was going to be able to be good company and not ruin our trip. So these are whether you have business goals, personal goals, or just want to have higher quality of life. These are things that we can use every single day of our lives with ourselves and with our children. For me, I've three grandchildren now, and I really want them to understand the power of their thoughts and their attitudes and things. And so it's something that I practice every single day, and it does require practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's really, I think what catches a lot of people up, Jennifer, is they think there's an end point, like, oh, I've completed this, I've done this.
Mm-hmm.
And but when it comes to that mental labor, it's an ongoing process, and it gets easier. I will tell you that. In the beginning, it does feel, you feel a bit like a construction worker that's working 12-hour days out in the 115-degree heat, maybe, depending on where you're at in life. But then you catch yourself and you can turn it around really, really quick. And when you do that, I have found when I am in that state of what I call peace and love, man, doors just fly open. The right people call me. I mean, I'll I'll turn on Facebook at the right time to see your message,
Mm-hmm.
Because Facebook doesn't show us half of our friends, it only, so if you see something,
Right.
I don't know. I mean, so it works. And I agree with Jennifer. Some people are going to think, yeah, whatever, that can't be it. But it's a secret sauce. So if you can take one thing from, Jennifer's experience today, just, take that time for that quiet time, take that time to start really analyzing your thoughts and become aware of them, and insert some new healthy ones in there.
Yeah. Great. Get the, really be the observer, I think, of your life, and and be curious, you know,
Yeah.
I wonder what you, and really kind of take an analytical view as opposed to be reacting, and not really kind of stepping back. I think that
Yeah.
that's the beginning for every new beginning is start kind of starts there. So
Yeah, I agree. I always invite people to be their own private investigator, get their binoculars, and really look into their life, you know, from an outsider, so they can see a new perspective. Because we all get caught up in our ruts and routines and habits, and we don't even know what we're doing half the time because
yeah,
we're just, you know, we've got bills to pay, kids to take care of, jobs to go to, and you slow down, you're like, whoa,
yeah.
there's a whole nother life over here. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, it's awesome. So, um, any other final words you want to add about making things happen before we wrap it up tonight?
No, or just go for it and be bold. I feel like we're all here at this moment on the planet, and there's a lot to do. There's like more work than we could all possibly accomplish. So find some buddies and like head out and get it done, you know, whatever that means for you. So thanks so much, Leanne. This was really great.
Yeah, thank you. And we will, if anybody's interested in learning more about the Master Key experience, we'll get the information to you. Just shoot me or Jennifer and a comment, or just put a comment in the Facebook Live, and we will get that information to you when it's ready. And thanks for joining us either on the live or the replay. And I think I have another interview this Thursday. Yep, I think so. So I'll be back Thursday. And Jennifer, thanks again for being
Yeah.
here. And
Thanks,
everyone have a
Leanne.
great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.